Looks like the main power cells are fried. Auto shut down. Triggering survival mode. I'm going to try to overwrite. Okay. If you can hear me in there, I hope you're ready. Please don't die. Please don't die.
Let me start by saying that I am in no way a Halo fanboy. I didn't play the games back when they were released on the original Xbox and the 360. I'm not a fan of the series. I only recently played the games from the Master Chief Collection to prepare myself for this game. The only two games I didn't play was Reach and ODST. And I was excited for this game for a number of reasons, one of which being an open world setting instead of using the traditional level-based setting. And while this game does have some really cool moments, there's definitely a few disappointments with this game that I felt personal. And when it comes to the previous games in the franchise, while my favorite of all time so far has to be Halo 2, I've always felt like these games, from playing them, has a bit of a problem with storytelling. It was hard for me to keep track of what was going on in the story. I have to read different comic books and watch different videos. And it's also difficult to follow these stories when some of the games, such as this one, forces you to go find audio logs to get more of the story. And to me, that's just a lazy way for developers to add collectibles in the game. So let's jump into this review and find out how this game holds up as a whole.
Whoa, easy there, big guy. You're not...
Status report.
Status report? What? There's something you need to see, Chief. We lost. Lost everything. There's nothing left for us here. I don't even know where here is.
So I'm going to start by talking about the cons that come with this game. And right off from the beginning, I'm going to talk about the one that everyone is talking about, the one that may be the most controversial, is the no co-op campaign. When I was going through the Master Chief Collection, I'll admit, playing the first one took me forever because I didn't have a lot of interest in the game at the time. And I was having moments where I played with a friend and then times where I was doing solo. And it just made things more enjoyable doing co-op, even though at times it made the game a bit more frustrating when we accidentally kill each other. But it's those co-op moments that makes the game a lot more enjoyable than just playing the game solo.
There's more!
She was my lover!
What is he? I killed a brute and another brute said, "Here was my lover!" You really did say that, wow!
Now, I noticed more games are trying to follow a similar approach to Breath of the Wild with these open worlds that are filled with forest areas and trees and wildlife. And I'm kind of tired of this approach because there's people out there who feel like Zelda Breath of the Wild is like the holy grail of gaming. And a lot of companies, a lot of games are following those approaches and taking inspiration when it doesn't really it's not needed, honestly. And with this game, the map is pretty sizable, but it is also at times feel a bit empty, being filled only with enemy bases that you have to fight in, as well as rescuing some NPCs to help you throughout your gameplay. And I was hoping for something a bit different, maybe like an Earth setting, kind of like that mission we got in Halo 2, where it was just non-stop badass action, and I wanted to be able to see some new heights for this game, for this franchise. Having an open world setting inside of like a city location, that would be really fun to see, in my opinion.
The message just repeats. Regret.
Regret.
Catchy. Any idea what it means?
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth. And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
Regret is a name, Sergeant. The name of one of the Covenant's religious leaders, a prophet. He's on that carrier, and he's calling for help.
Immediate. Grid Kilo 2-3 is hot. Recommend mission abort.
Roger, Recon. It's your call, Sarge.
We're going in. Get tactical, Marines!
Master Chief, get aboard that carrier. Secure the Prophet of Regret. This is the only place on Earth the Covenant decided to land. That Prophet is going to tell us why.
Whoa.
And yes, there are certain moments in this game that is pretty cool and badass, but from my memory, nothing as cool as that from Halo 2. Another problem I have with this game is they still have yet to bring back the dual wield. I really do miss having dual wield weapons. It was really cool. One of my favorite things about Halo 2 as well. The NPC soldiers, as I mentioned earlier, are in the game. They do help you, but they're pretty bad. They have times where they're unresponsive. They're not hopping in my vehicle. They disappear sometimes. And I don't know if this is a problem only on the Series S, because that's the console that I own. That's the console that I played on. Another problem I had with this game was graphics mode compared to performance mode. Now, performance mode runs very, very smooth. And the game still looks pretty good, but when you go into graphics mode, the game looks so much more better, but it had a really bad frame rate issue that was very noticeable when I switched between performance and graphics mode.
UNSC distress pulse. No response on comms. We should check it out.
Say adios to those limbs of yours!
Sure this isn't a wasp? Attack landing! I'm gonna rip out your feet and heart and feed it to you!
Wanna ride?
Not my armor!
That one's We're here. How's it looking?
In quality mode, some of the colors do look better. They tend to pop more and give you a much more visual thing to, more appealing to look at visually. But there is some times where the game does slow down in that mode. It's more noticeable when you have more enemies on screen. So it's not a big difference when there's, empty spaces you're traveling. But if you're going after all these bases and all these enemies, you will notice it there. I also had a problem with the character Echo 216, or the pilot in this game. He was pretty annoying throughout the game, and the only real purpose he served was to bring you vehicles while you're at different locations. And I feel like he could have done more, like maybe bring in some ammo crates, if he had guns on the ship, do like an airstrike. But he doesn't really serve a purpose other than annoy the crap out of you. Now, as I mentioned before, Halo does have, in my opinion, a bit of problem with the story. Just trying to grasp what the heck is going on and who is who and what's happening. And with this one, it's no different. Now, I think the problem with that is, and this is a bit of a spoiler warning for those who haven't played the game, is there's a bit too much going on with the enemies. Because you have the Banish, which was like the main enemy team that you're supposed to face off against here. Then you have a member of, I believe they were called the Front Runners, and you also have different bosses who have a bit of backstory to them. But I think most of the story in this game is locked behind audio logs that you have to find throughout the map. And I just don't like that type of game mechanic where you have to find audio logs just to get the whole story together. I think it's just a lazy way to add a collectible item in the game. I would rather prefer collecting other things because you do find some fallen Spartans throughout the game. So maybe something more to that. Maybe finding armors of legendary Spartan members or helmets. There is an Easter egg of Spartan Locke's helmet somewhere, implying that he's also been killed off. But having to find audio logs just to understand the full story was pretty disappointing. Going on from there, in terms of the last boss fight, which another spoiler warning for you here, is that you don't really fight the last boss, or the last boss that you think is going to be basically Atriox isn't the last boss. You don't fight him in the game. And the game is spent having Atriox, taunt you throughout the game as you progress, and it's just sequel bait for the next game. You instead fight one of his men, and then you fight that alien that I mentioned before, who I believe is a member of the front runners, if I remember correctly. And I did find the second to last boss more challenging than the final boss. And I was really hoping to fight Atriox, having this, Spartan versus banished, one-on-one, badass, big dude fight. And we didn't get it. At least in Halo 5, you got a cutscene between Master Chief and Locke. But in here, you didn't even get the two to meet up with each other. They also teased from one of the trailers this one boss fight who has like the energy sword and I guess an energy shield. And he was a cakewalk, honestly. I was hoping for something more badass. And I think the more badass moments are from Chief, but there just isn't enough here as there is in previous games.
No. Not then. Not again. We need to run.
I need a weapon.
Weapon? This is all I've got.
It's enough.
Wait, what? What are you gonna do?
Improvise. Close the door.
The main batteries are shut down. We're stuck out here. You have one bullet against an entire army. What can you do on your own?
I told you. It's enough.
So I see. They're powering up a stasis beam. We can't escape.
You work on the batteries. I'll buy us some time.
There's also the occasional bug or glitch in this game, like this one right here where there was an invisible wall stopping me from progressing. I couldn't grapple, I couldn't move forward, and I had to reset my game just to fix it, and it was pretty frustrating when it happened. Now, one thing for me personally that I wish was in this game is customizable armor. You can't customize Chief's armor, you can't change the color of it, and you can in multiplayer, but I understand why in multiplayer. But here, it would have been cool to see that since you are in an open world game, open world environment, and you will see a bit more of Chief's armor when you're driving vehicles, and that would have been really cool to see different armor options. And that's just not the case here. Driving controls is still really bad. It still has the left stick to accelerate, right stick to kind of turn. It's horrible. I know people who play Halo for years. They are good at driving because of that much time playing. But in this time, end of 2021, start of 2022, we should be getting better driving controls from Halo. That's just how I feel. As for using like a Banshee, they're not as common in this game. And even when you do find one, they're not as powerful. I spent minutes shooting at enemies that should have died pretty quickly, and they wouldn't. There are certain moments in the game where it can be frustrating, where you're just dying randomly or you have some kind of bullshit event. I had a point of the game where I was dying in one hit with max health and armor, and I had no idea what was going on with that. There's also parts of the game where you get zapped by this new enemy type, and if you're in a vehicle, it'll shut down your vehicle for a few seconds. That gets really annoying and really frustrating. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the pros of this game, because there are definitely some pros to this game. Like, for one thing, yes, there are some really cool moments in the game, like the one you just saw, as well as a few other cool moments in the game. Some really cool visual, badass moments.
Oh God, it was you, wasn't it?
Now.
I'm coming, I'm coming!
Open up. Go.
And that's even after having some really funny, crazy moments in this game.
Good. Let's get out of here before the fireworks start. Didn't think we were gonna make it back there. Let's deal with the laser.
The grapple hook is also mostly amazing, and I say mostly because at times the range is pretty shit. And I was hoping to be able to combine some of these other abilities, if you would call it that, because you have a grapple hook and you also unlock an air dash. And it would have been cool to grapple hook into a location and then air dash further and then grapple hook again, but you can't. If you're quick enough to switch between the two, you also have to wait a few seconds for the bar to charge back up for you to use the next item or ability. And that would have been a really fun thing to do, and it's just not the case here. But the grapple hook is pretty awesome, especially when you upgrade it to electrocute enemies as you grapple to them. Now, speaking of enemies, there are some enemies here that do feel alive. They feel like they have a personality. I had one enemy who was terrified of me when I grappled onto him because he knew I was about to kill him and he was begging for his life. And part of the fun with this game is creating your own exciting moments. And that's fine and all. I just wish there was more tools available. Like, you do have the power cells that you can throw at enemies. Occasionally you'll find a tank that you can use on enemies, and that makes it fun. But it makes it more fun if you would have a player to play with you and enjoy these moments with you. Now, on top of that, you also have this new character called The Weapon. It's basically Cortana's replacement. And she wasn't bad. She was interesting. She had more personality than the pilot. So that was really cool and good about the game. There's a lot of weapon variety in the game, like a lot of different weapons. And with that, you can find different modules in the field that can refill some of your ammo, depending on your weapon type. So that was also pretty handy at some parts of the game. There were some cool boss battles, kind of reminded me of the Nemesis system from Middle-earth. Shadow of Mordor with not as heavy of a mechanic on the Nemesis system. More so of like, here are these different enemies with a history of killing Spartans. Here are the locations, take them out. So that was pretty cool. And throughout single player, there are some collectibles that are interesting to find, one of which will improve on your abilities. Another collectible is different armor customization options for multiplayer. The game sounds and looks amazing. There's no doubt about it. So there is quite a bit positive to this game, and also it's Game Pass. It's on Game Pass, so you're not paying for the game, and that's pretty cool right there. Now, in terms of multiplayer, because I did do some multiplayer before the game released, not so much after the game released, because the game took me over a month to complete. So if you're a casual player, you do have a lot of game here available to you. If you are one who likes to complete everything, and well, in terms of that, to a completionist, you have a lot to do here. If you're a speedrunner, it may take you a bit, especially certain points of the game would be frustrating with how quickly you can die or how annoying a certain part is, but there is a good amount of game here for you to handle. Now with multiplayer, there was some problems with multiplayer people have talked about before, one of which is, as far as I know, you still can't select what kind of game type you want to play. It's kind of just randomized. That's something that shouldn't be here, because pretty much every multiplayer shooting game lets you choose what game mode you want to play, and it shouldn't have to be a random switch around. Other than that, they do try to put you against players within your skill set, and it's a problem when I play with some of my friends because they're so much better than me, and therefore I'm stuck playing against players who are so much better than me. But there's still some fun to have there with multiplayer. I just wish there was a bit more. I remember classic Halo games when I would visit my brother and play casually. You can make custom matches and you can control a whole bunch of different vehicles. So you don't have that much of that experience here. But maybe we'll see some improvements going forward.
It's been 6 months. Where have you been?
What happened? Where is Cortana?
The rogue AI known as Cortana is gone. She's been deleted.
How? By you?
So just a quick recap of my cons and pros. Story is hard to follow. The open world can feel empty at times. Not much going on other than warfare in various locations. No dual wield. The NPC soldiers are not perfect. Graphics mode, or quality mode as they call it, does have its issues. Some characters are not great. No customization for Chief, and driving control sucks. And of course, no co-op campaign. But the pros are good enough to help you play this game if you haven't already. You have these cool moments in the game. You have some cool abilities, a lot of weapons, a lot of gameplay in here, a lot of open world to see. Even though it may not be as filled as I would like it to be, there is still a lot to see here. The new AI character is pretty awesome. The boss battles are cool, for the most part. And multiplayer can be enjoyable if you're playing with the right people and you have your friends playing with you. That'll be really cool. Other than that, I guess my final score for this game, while it wasn't my favorite of the franchise, I would have to say, with the cons in this game, as many as there is, for me, this game, as a newcomer to the franchise, not a Halo fan, this game gets about a 7 out of 10 for me. 7 out of 10 is not horrible by any means, but it's also just missing a couple more things to make it reach that 8 or 9 out of 10. And I am hoping to see what happens with the next game, since there is sequel bait for the next game coming out. With that being said, I'm Anthony Olan Tech. Thank you for watching and being patient for this review, and I'll see you guys next time.